Welcome to the bi-week blues edition of the MIA All Day podcast. I am your host, Carlos Ledo. I should be about through a fifth of a bottle of Jack right now, following last week's performance, but I'm not. I'm being restrained, holding back, keeping myself in check because I could have gone off the deep end. I pounded a lot pounded a lot of drinks after last week's loss, tried to ease the pain, was comatose pretty much Sunday because, 43 years old. That's right. Although I do look very young now that my beard has dyed, if you can see it. It's mostly dyed black right now, not because I was tired of the gray, but I'm still in mourning for last week's loss, which is why I'm also wearing the black Miami Maniac hat, because this Hurricanes football team is making me mad like a maniac. Also got the black logo in the back for the morning. But yeah, man, I had to scale myself back and just try and woo-saw this thing out, which I vented on the Wide Right podcast. If you heard that with Manny Navarro, if you checked it out on YouTube, thank you. We have, as of today, Friday, 2:40 p.m., over 2,100 views. So thank all of you for the support. Thank you for all the comments. We read them. We just can't get to all of them. I may be responding to some over the weekend, but most importantly, I want to thank you for that, for the support, not only for watching us on YouTube, for commenting on the YouTube page of Wide Right, but also downloading the podcast. Those of you that did just the audio version or did both. If you did that, you're a maniac like I am, because I listen to myself and I also watch myself on video because I torture myself and I break my own film down of myself. Yeah, it's sad, but whatever. Anyway, also this week, because we have a bye week, I'm not breaking anybody down, not breaking North Carolina down, saving that for next week, which is going to be interesting. So, hold on to your asses. We're going to be doing some serious talk about North Carolina and what they could possibly do to our secondary. And it might end up being like a basketball score, like 101 to 120. I mean, if the Hurricanes can score, of course, which, Well, anyway, also want to thank everybody that participated on Twitter, because it is the bi-week blues edition, meaning we're all depressed. I put a call out to everyone on Twitter to send me some questions, some comments, and I was going to record this yesterday, but got so many that I wanted to let people flow with the questions, with the comments, vent, air it out, get that catharsis, get that nastiness out of the system, get this loss out of our veins and move on. That hasn't happened fully yet, but we're getting there. So thank you, everybody that participated, that sent in questions and comments. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the support. A lot of you are my day ones on the podcast ever since I started last season, have continued to support me this year, and I really appreciate it. Time for a sip of Diet Coke, or is it more than Diet Coke since it's Friday? It's Diet Coke. Anyway, so without further ado, I want to bring up the actual tweets, man, that a bunch of you sent in. So I want to start off with one. It talks a little bit about Josh Pate, which is a guy that has his own, show off 24/7 on YouTube and on various internet connecting things. And here is the question. As you can see here, let me full screen this for you guys. I think you should be able to see it full screen with me in the little corner there. Hopefully you can. But the question is here from my man, Tom 524-144-22. Tom, I don't know if that's your prison number, if you did time, my man, or if you're still in there. But either way, thank you. Thank you for participating. And if you are locked up, like Akon, locked up, they won't let me out. Thank you for participating from the pen and having to exchange however many cools or Newports you had to be able to use your phone in the pen and use the internet connection to get me this. So here are Tom's comments. Tom said, lots of people, including former coaches, question Gattis as an OC. Josh Pate said on his show this week that he got several phone calls from current coaches that said they loved the Mario hire, but also said Gattis hire was not going to work out. And these phone calls came before the season started. And they have since been calling to say, told you so. Is Gattis maybe not the coordinator we thought he was? Now, I'll get to the other tweets here on this screen. But before I do that, I'm going to address a bunch of the tweets as I go on, especially with the offense, and I'm going to save the best for last, which is TVD, the situation that's going on with TVD, and we'll discuss that. But I think when it comes to outside voices commenting on the Hurricanes, you always have to take things with a grain of salt, and I think you have to look at the source of where it's coming from. And sometimes you got to call people out on their bullshit. Okay, I'm not saying that Josh Pate doesn't know what he's saying. I'm not saying that Josh Pate isn't connected. I'm not saying that Josh Pate doesn't have a bunch of coaches that contact him and talk to him about, a bunch of stuff concerning college football, and that's how he gets his information and how he's able to provide that to his audience. But we also have to understand that these guys who spew these views, who are on TV or even on internet shows, they're trying to get views, they're trying to get ratings, it's not clickbait per se, but they're trying to draw in audiences, and they're trying to say things that, one, are unique, two, are, for lack of a better word, interesting to draw people in, and three, they're insightful. So I think, obviously, maybe this happened with Josh Pate, that he really did get these calls before the season. Maybe he really did get calls during the year now of people saying, told you so. But who are these people that are saying this stuff? Where's it coming from? What agenda do they have? And Josh Pate tweeted this. So, as we can see, back on February 6th, 2022, Josh Pate tweeted, being on Mario Cristobal's staff is a grind, and some even shy away from it. But Josh Gattis has worked for Saban and Jim Harbaugh, both of whom believe there are 25 hours in a day. This could be a perfect fit. Now, of course, this could be Josh alluding to Gattis's work ethic and him being a workaholic and not necessarily his fit as an offensive coordinator. But he does say it's a perfect fit here. If he had these sources that called him day one when Gattis was hired, why didn't he need to say that? Why? Because it didn't benefit the narrative, right? He would have seen as a guy that was just hating. So he held in his back. If it's true, he held it in his back pocket and waited for the right time to pull that shit out like a trump card. Here you go. I knew this shit all along. Didn't want to tell you because I don't want to depress you, but here you go. Here it is. But if he had it, he should have shown it. But again, I'm not going to tell a guy how to run his show. First of all, the dude is way more popular than I am. By a mile. Like, not a mile. By 10,000 miles. The guy has a lot more, he's a lot more connected. He's a lot more interesting, some would say. I wouldn't. But some would say he is more interesting. Whatever. He's got a big time show on 247. He's well connected. He's a knowledgeable guy. So if we take him at his word, fine. I'm cool with that. But also acknowledge what you said in the past, my man. That's all I'm going to say. All right. And let's stop listening to outside voices that believe, that have agendas or vendettas against certain people. And, there's guys that are commenting on YouTube, or a guy who used to be a former offensive coordinator for Ohio State. I'm not going to mention his name. Zach Smith. Menace to Sports, I believe, is his channel. I really don't care. He's a knowledgeable guy. He knows his shit. He coached at Ohio State. He's coached in many programs. He was an offensive coordinator at Ohio State, like I said. And he is destroying Josh Gattis on his show. I mean, I've looked through his page for the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks. The only coordinator, the only person he's talked shit about and saying they should be fired or that something's a dumpster fire is Miami. Why? And why does he always put the Michigan logo next to the Miami logo when he's talking about Josh Gattis? Why do 90% of his videos have Ohio State logos? So that's what I'm talking about with the Jets. If you watch his breakdown of Texas A&M, he will tell you, he was like, okay, this was actually a good call. Bad execution. And he blames a lot of stuff on Gattis, and maybe he shouldn't be blamed on Gattis, but he does say, look, this was actually a good call. This was just a fuck up here. This guy should have caught this pass. So sometimes it comes off a lot more intense in terms of the hatred, especially now. He's ramped it up now because apparently Josh Gattis or UM contacted YouTube to have some of his videos removed, and he lost like $200 in monetization. So that sucks. I mean, $200, not a big deal, but man, shouldn't be taking money out of a man's pocket. Any money. That's how I was raised. Don't be taking any kind of money out of my pocket. You take 5 from me, give me 5 back, or with interest. All right. Either way, yes, lots of noise about Josh Gattis in the internet sphere, right? In the global internet world of college football debate and talk. But I mean, look at it objectively. Don't let your emotions cloud your analysis of things. I think that's a great piece of advice for life in general, and I pat myself on the back because that's pretty good. Also, you shouldn't just look at things that confirm your own biases or confirm your own thought processes or things you already come in believing. You should look at things critically that also maybe don't match up with what you're currently feeling or believing, and analyze them and see maybe if there's any truth to it, or maybe there's anything that maybe you could pick up from it. Maybe it doesn't change your view, but maybe it gives you a different perspective. And I think that's okay. And I think in society in general, I think we lost a lot of that. I think we lost a lot of discourse and a lot of the ability to be able to disagree in a respectful manner, but at the same time take something away from each other where we find more common ground rather than pushing further apart. And I think that's something we could all use in our lives nowadays. The PSA is over. I'm done with my political talk. Well, it's not really political, but philosophical, I would say. I'm kind of an apolitical guy because I really don't give a shit. You know why? I got to get up and grind every day anyway. I don't give a fuck who's in office. Anyway, scratch that political stuff. I'm not getting political with you guys. Please don't tweet me. Don't text me. Don't text me because you don't have my number. If you have my number and I don't know you, I'm changing my number because I don't give that shit out to just anybody. Anyway. So yes, Gattis has failed to live up to some of the hype. Now, here's the other thing. What were we expecting when Josh Gattis came in? I think maybe not just for Gattis, but I think for this team, the expectations, maybe the bar was set a little high in terms of what we thought was going to happen coming into the season. And granted, no expectation of losing to Middle Tennessee State. That is unacceptable, completely unacceptable, and inconceivable. If you get the movie reference, leave it in the comments on YouTube. Hit me up on Twitter. That's inconceivable. That's unheard of. Okay, that's unacceptable. Texas A&M, tough loss. I get it. They are not what we thought they would be on offense, and I think there's a bunch of different factors that lead into that. But do I think Josh Gattis is a bad offensive coordinator? No. Do I think he's going to fix it and get it right? Yes, to a certain extent. Do I think there's enough there to be scoring 45 points a game? No, I don't. I'm sorry. I think we need to adjust our expectations and see that this team is going to be, if they can get 30 to 33 points a game, 35 at the high end, if they can be that and hold teams to 20, 22 points a game defensively, then we're looking good. And then that's the model of this team of what we're going to see for now. But ideally, this offense, the way Mario envisions this offense, when it's clicking all cylinders, and he's got all the people, all the pieces, all the talent that he wants in, is probably going to look like Georgia. And I mentioned this on the Wide Right podcast with Manning. It's going to be good quarterback play, A+ quarterback play if you can get it. B+ is fine. Strong running game, really good offensive line play, use of tight ends and receivers, and be in a situation where your defense is a strength of your team. So in case your quarterback is an off day, or your receivers aren't catching the ball, or if your offensive line is just being overwhelmed, you can hang in there with your defense and battle it out and grind it out, okay? So it gives you multiple ways and multiple dimensions to how you can execute and win a game, as opposed to what we saw last year with the Hurricanes was it's either TVD's going for 303 touchdowns, 303 touchdowns, or we're losing the game, or even if he does, we still lose. Florida State, right? So I'll get into that a little bit at the end. Let's go on to a conversation I had via Twitter with a guy who covers Michigan football. He not necessarily covers as a media member, but he covers it in terms of breaking down their schemes and looking at their offense and looking at their defense and just going over the X's and O's of it on a weekly basis. He's got his own blog. You'll see his picture up here now in terms of his handle. Okay, we're gonna put it up on screen now. Here you go. His name is Space Coyote. And he's got a great blog if you want to check that out. Great on X's and O's. So I asked him, I said, hey man, I'm a Canes fan. You know, what's your take on Gattis? essentially. A lot of people are frustrated. Let me show the other one first. A lot of people are frustrated with Gattis. Some people are saying he didn't call plays at Michigan last year. What do you know? What can you give me some insight? So here's what I said. Canes fan here. What is your take on some of the media saying Gattis had play calling duties stripped last year and that he is regarded as a bad OC in the coaching? He responds, Gattis clearly called plays. So a lot of the bullshit that's going around that you're hearing from other people that Gattis had the play calling stripped away from him, it was all Jim Harbaugh, not true. And much of the playbook was pulled from his time at Bama and Penn State. So a lot of what he's using is a mix of what he saw with Mike Locksley and what he had with Joe Moorhead at Penn State, which is a great mix, two great guys to learn from. Harbaugh has always collaborated with full staff, so all had influence on game plans, but Gattis ran it. What does that mean? That everybody's coming up with a game plan together. So it's a cohesive meeting between the offensive staff where they're identifying on film what they think would work best, and they're coming up with a play call sheet and how they're going to run it and when they're going to execute it. But at the end, it's up to Gattis to call the plays and put them in the right positions, right? And that's essentially what he said in that one. Now, we had a couple more exchanges, and I'm going to send you the rest of it here. Send it to you. No, I'm going to show it to you on screen if I can find it. Here we go. Is this it? Nah, that's the one I just showed you. Sorry, this is lovely. So here we go. I asked him essentially, a lot of people are frustrated that he's not getting explosive plays in the passing game. That's the main thing that's happening. They feel like the quarterback has regressed under him. He said he could draw up explosive passes, but for the most part, I didn't love his pass playbook. Michigan pretty regularly struggled getting separation, kind of like we do, right? And it just felt like it depended a lot on guys running away from coverage. It wasn't bad per se, but wasn't my favorite. So what does he mean by that? He means that a lot of the things that Gattis draws up in terms of deep shots are dependent upon the receiver winning their matchup, not necessarily the scheme clearing something open for the receiver. That's how he ran his deep shots at Michigan. So that's what he means by depending on guys getting separation, and they struggled because they couldn't get the separation like we're seeing now with Miami. He also said, I didn't watch a ton of Canes last year, but what I did see appeared to be pretty major rebuild. But discipline and technique, especially on the offensive line, left a lot to be desired. So he was acknowledging, especially on the offensive side of the ball, this is not the rosy thing that we all expected coming into the season, right? That's why I sort of on the Wide Ride podcast, when I spoke with Manny in the preseason, one of the things that I said that I wanted to see happen was, how does TVD come into the season, and how does he take, or how does he react to being schemed for with a full offseason of tape on him? It's no longer going, bang, 1 week to the next, and you have to prepare for this guy in a few days. No, now everybody's got your tape from last season. Everybody sees your warts. Everybody sees where they can expose you, and they're going to throw it at you time and time and time and time again. What did you do in the offseason to prepare and get ready for that stuff? How well do you know the scheme? Did you study it to understand when a defense gives you something, a certain look, or tries to throw something at you, how to counter that within the scheme? That's part of the problem with the offense. But we'll get back to that. More on that later. For what it's worth, many Michigan fans at one time thought Harbaugh had too much influence on the offense until last year when they gave him credit. So in reality, most Michigan fans weren't blaming Gattis. They were blaming Harbaugh for being too much Harbaugh. But Mario takes much more control than Harbaugh on offense. I never loved Gattis as an OC, but he improved over the years and was, I'll finish it where you're here, and was solid as an OC, is what he said, solid. So a guy that covers Michigan, breaks down the X's and O's, knows the offense. Not his preferred offense, but he felt like Gattis did a solid job. His main complaint was the deep passing game, getting deep shots through the means that he did. And the other thing that I commented on that he liked, he didn't give me a direct response, was I feel like Gattis's deep shots are very focused on deep crossing routes and often a secondary move up the field when the receiver crosses and gets to the other hash and then runs an up route. I also said a lot of his deep shots are slow developing, and he agreed. He liked it, and he said yes. That's essentially saying yes. There you go. That's a Twitter yes. That his plays can be slow developing in terms of the deep shots. And we're going to go over some of the things that I think the offense can do to help that stuff out, and some of the things we can see moving forward. Now, let's see what other tweets lurk in here. Let's see. Okay. So my man Kane, Mr. Kane 5150, went off yesterday. He dropped a bunch of tweets as soon as I asked the question, or sent out the call for additional questions. This one it sounds like it's the last one. So let me go back and I will find his first hurrah of tweet storms. And I believe, where'd it go? I think this is it. Okay, so one of the questions he asked is, will Mario and Gattis make the necessary changes to the playbook and personnel so this year isn't a total waste? And that is a great question. I think they're going to have to make changes with the personnel just based on performance and buy-in. I think you're going to see that. And I think that's another one of the questions. I don't know if it's on here, but we'll talk about it anyway. So I think you're going to see changes in the depth chart and the playing time and the snaps based on who they feel is bought in and who they trust and who they don't trust. I think one of the problems that came out of Texas A&M is that a lot of these guys came into that game and played so far above their heads because they were so hyped up, so excited for this opportunity, that they gave maximum effort and reached a level they likely will not reach on a consistent basis ever again. DJI. Just one guy. So the coaches got a false sense of security in terms of what they saw on tape that game and what they felt was going to be the next natural progression for these players, ignoring the tape of the last few years that they've been here at the University of Miami. If they would have known, if they would have asked me, they would have asked any of the Canes fans, do you trust DJ Ivey in man coverage? Shannon Sharp, no, I don't. I never have, never will. Yeah, he played really well against Texas A&M, but as we know, DJ Ivey's going to DJ Ivey. And I'm not hating that guy personally. He might be a great person, a really good guy, and it's unfortunate that he played poorly against Middle Tennessee after having such a great performance against Texas A&M, but we got to call it like it is, and he didn't play well against Middle Tennessee. He got burnt to a crisp. Okay, so I think that's part of the problem. I think they went in there with false expectations of guys they thought were better based on the A&M film than they really are, and definitely underestimated the mental fortitude of this team. If you would have watched, I mean, Mario came here not knowing what the hell he was really getting into. And if he would have watched some Canes football the last few years, he would have known that any little bit of success, even in a loss, even a moral victory, gets this team's head inflated in a way that makes them slip back, play down to their competition, and basically not give a shit. I think that they can roll the football out and just get it done. Yeah, we can win. The U on the side of our helmet's going to take care of it for us. So many years, 20 years of this shit, of the same stuff. I'm getting excited. I can't do this. I got to slow down. I got to calm it down. I got to reel it back. Let me get some more Diet Coke. 20 years of the same thing, of hype, of grandiosity, of hubris. It's 20 years of hurricane hubris, is what it is. Believing that you are entitled to victory because of the sacrifice of others in the past. That because others before you, who wore that same uniform and went to the same school and played on the same field, were highly successful at one point, that just because you put on the same uniform, the same helmet, you're going to be just as successful. And now I'm going to get into my nerd mode. If you watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the Disney Plus series, there you go. I'm going MCU one. There are two takes on taking up the mantle of Captain America. Right? Falcon, this spoilers, by the way. If you haven't seen the series and you really want to watch it, cover your ears for the next 30 seconds or so. There you go, you've been one. Falcon really doesn't feel like he's earned the mantle of Captain America. He doesn't feel worthy of it, even though Steve Rogers left him the shield in Endgame. Spoiler for Endgame! If you haven't watched it by now, I'm sorry. Then the government decides they still need a Captain America. The world needs a Captain America. So what do? Just pick a random soldier, throw him in a suit, give him the shield, and hey, you're Captain America. And because of what Captain America stood for in the past, it's just going to be a straight continuation. And it's going to be the same thing. Not the same. Didn't earn it like Captain America. Didn't go through the trials and tribulations. Didn't go through the hero's journey, right? Those of you who know anything about literature, the hero's journey, going through the grind, going through the fire to come out a different person and have earned your stripes. That's what makes you successful. That's what makes you a champion. That's what leads to wins. That's what leads to success. It's not just throwing on the uniform and expecting things to happen for you. It's you still going out there and putting in the work. It's an honor and it's a privilege. And because you wear that uniform of someone that's been successful and important in the past, right? That you're continuing a legacy that was forged through work and effort and passion, then you should have the same reverence. You should have some reverence for that and for that history, and put in the same level of work and effort, if not more so, to continue the legacy. Not expect the legacy to continue just because you're in the uniform. There you go. Let's see where the questions are going here. Hey, Carlos, if Mario's unable to get this program turned around, do you subscribe to the idea that UM needs to pull the plug on the program or just go back to middling mediocrity? Well, I don't think they're ever going to pull the plug on football. I think they still, regardless of whether they're highly successful or not, they make enough money on football that they're cash positive. So I don't think that's going away anywhere. And I think nobody's going to cancel the football program. For one, it'll lead to a major drop in enrollment. I think, sports in general are a big selling point for colleges and universities aside from their academics. So that's one. However, and Manny and I said this on the Wide Ride podcast, and I'm pretty sure this is where the question came from. And thank you, Drop Dog 72, for sending it in. At some point, right, if you're not getting the success relative to the level of investment that you're making in this program, if that doesn't align, if you're putting in more money and not getting the kind of return that you expected on that money that's being invested, the money's going to dry up. They're not going to keep throwing money down a well. And it's not going to be for years either. Okay? Max 3 years. If at the end of 3 years, this team is not playing for a conference championship, if it's 7-5, 8-4 for 3 years, guess what? That money's getting pulled. Simple. Because they're not going to keep throwing money down a hole for no reason. Because they were getting 7-5, 8-4, 9-3, the occasional 10-win season every 20 years, just by doing the bare minimum. So why would they throw all this money at it to get the same results? It makes no sense. Right? So what I can say is if that Mario fails and the money dries up, I think this program will then, it won't be the death of the program, but it'll be the death of the program we once knew as the 5-time national champions. Those days will be over for good, I think. I think at that point, we'll be resigned to being a middle of pack ACC team like Pitt, Louisville, Syracuse, Boston College, Virginia, consistently between 9-3 and 7-5. On the occasional year, you might pop every 10 years and get a 10-win season, get into the conference title game, maybe sneak in a conference title every 10, 12 years. I mean, it hasn't happened yet. We've been in the league since 2004, still haven't won a conference championship. So, I mean, it is what it is. And I don't think you have to look too far in the future to see that's a reality. I mean, all you have to do is look at the last 20 years. Shit, look at the last 18 in the ACC. What has that produced for this football program? One conference championship appearance where they got schmacked by Clemson. So the goal here, the reason why money's pouring in, the reason why Mario was hired is because Mario is more than anything an ace recruiter. He's an ace talent identifier, relationship builder, and recruiter. Okay? And the money that's pouring in is to assist him in landing those recruits, whether it be NIL, facilities, or whatever the case may be. So if Mario can't get recruits with the money that's being thrown his way and the access to resources that he has, then those resources are going to dry up and we're going to go back to being a middling program, and Mario's probably going to be gone and on to another program. But I don't think we're there. And let me not depress you too much. We're not there. Okay. My man, Sean Von Furch, I'm with you. My questions are probably like everyone else's. Why did Mario break the offense? And I thought we were no longer playing down to our opponents. I'll take the second part of the question first because I'm going to answer the first part in another section. I just answered it, actually. I thought we were no longer playing down to our opponents. And I think it's systemic. It's a cultural thing. It's something that's taken root of this program for nearly 20 years now, is this attitude of, you know, we're better than everybody else because of our star rating and our uniform and the U on the side of our head on our helmet. We should just come out there and beat everybody's ass because that's who we are. And people should just lay down for us because we're Miami, right? Why aren't they laying down for us? Oh shit, we're in a game. Okay, now we got to try and play hard. No, too late. Lost to Middle Tennessee. Lost to FIU. Lost to Louisiana Tech. And there it is. But I think, and here's free game. And I'm sending this out into the YouTube sphere, into the Twitter sphere. I'm sending this out into the universe to Mario Cristobal. I would make shirts for each player on this team that say the following slogan. It's all about the you. It's not about you. I'm going to repeat that because that shit is deep. It's all about the you. It's not about you. And that's the way it needs to be. That's the cultural shift that needs to happen, because for too long, it's been about the individual in this program coming in, just wanting to do the bare minimum effort-wise, not really caring if wins happen or losses happen, whatever may happen. They're just here to get onto the next level and say they were Hurricanes, to borrow off the legacy of others without creating anything on their own. That needs to change. And I think Mario will get that done. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Did Hurricane Iron blow away Gattis' scheme? Does the offense need more RPOs for wide receiver sets? Let me look for some more offensive tweets, because we're a bunch, and see if we can mix in some of these answers. So my man Kane again. Will Mario and Gattis get the necessary personnel changes and playbook personnel systems in a total waste? Okay, we just saw that. Sorry, my mistake. Is it this one? Okay. Last one. What the F is going on? Are the players rebelling against some of the changes that have been made? And we're so pissed they're divided not to put forth any effort last week. Nothing else explains getting boat raced by that shitty team other than our players weren't trying. He goes on to say, Kane again, up until last week, the last game, Steele was making adjustments from game to game. In game for the defense. What the hell happened last week with no adjustments made? And then he goes on with the other, will Mario make the personnel change? And in between, my man can't see me, Jorge DTA had a question. Wouldn't it be easier to record a podcast if the subject matter was designed around things that only bring you joy? You know, like Trek, MCU, and for me, Ghostbusters. I mean, yes, I've been debating starting a geek podcast or a fandom podcast, if you will, where I talk about pop culture, well, really, movies, TV shows, and superhero related shit. You know, like Star Wars, Harry Potter, MCU, DC, all that kind of stuff. So I'm debating that. If you want me to do that, hit me up in the comments on YouTube, hit me up on Twitter and let me know. If you vote yes for it, I'll put it up by next week. Throw you an episode. See what you think. Anyway, I think there's also some additional offensive tweets. So when we see them, we'll talk about it. So I'll take this off screen for a second. So going back to my man Kane's question about the personnel changes, I think it's very clear that certain changes need to happen personnel-wise, and not just because they're not buying in, but I think just performance-based. I think on the offensive line, to me, Zion Nelson, if he's healthy, the minute he's ready to go, needs to go back to left tackle. I think John Campbell needs to push back out to right tackle. I think you bump DJ Scaife inside to left to right guard. And I say that because Justice Oluseun has been struggling. Right now, Justice, he's had a rough go with, man. He's done okay in the run blocking, 74.3 according to PFF, but his pass blocking has been a 53.5. A lot of the pressure you saw last week was on the right side. You saw it against A&M as well. I also believe, and it sucks because I think the kid's a good kid, Ja'Kai Clark may need to be replaced at center. I think you need to give Jonathan Dennis a shot. Right now, Ja'Kai Clark has a 61.5 run blocking grade for the season and a 58.1 pass blocking grade. That shit's not going to cut. That is not going to do it. Okay. So we need to look at definitely getting Zion back on the field and possibly looking at replacing Ja'Kai Clark at center to see if we get some better play on the offensive line. I think you need more targets to the running backs, specifically Jalen Knight. I know he's hurt. I know he's been dinged up and suspended and stuff, but I think as soon as he comes back, if he can impact this team like he did last season when he came back from suspension or injury, I forgot what it was, he can be a game changer. We've seen that. And I think if you put him in the backfield along with Henry Parrish in some sets, or if you put him in the backfield alongside Brashard Smith, and you go heavy with one tight end, two backs, or you go two backs, two tight ends with one receiver, and you put those guys on the field, and teams have to condense now and go heavier, put a third linebacker on the field and bring more of a heavy run set to combat that personnel grouping by the Hurricanes. You could eat them alive with those backs coming out of the backfield, especially running those Texas routes, which are angle routes. You've seen that, right? We go back over the middle of the field. I think, we saw Jalen Knight take one of those to the house against Florida State last year. I think that needs to be one of the focuses. I think finding mismatches through personnel groupings and attacking the mismatch is something that I haven't seen Gattis do a good job of yet. I think a lot of what he's run, or at least the way it's been executed, has been, here's the concept, figure it out, see who's open to this, as opposed to, okay, here's our personnel grouping. Let's get to the line of scrimmage. Where do we have the mismatch? All right, here's a route concept we're running, and we know who we're going to as number one, as our number one option, right? That guy here, he's not there, go to the next one. And make the read progressions, I think, also quicker and shorter. And I think you do that through RPOs, like we talked about earlier. And I'll get to that in a second. Aside from that, I think you got to keep Frank Ladson and Keyshawn Smith on the field as much as possible on the outside. I think you got to get Brashard Smith in there as much as possible. I think you peel back a little bit on Michael Redding and try and insert Colby Young a little bit more, especially along the goal line. I think you need to incorporate Elijah Arroyo more in terms of targets. And then also pull back a little bit on Will Mallory's snaps and use more Dominic Mammarelli to help with the blocking scheme, because Will Mallory, for lack of a better word, is a shitty blocker. Forgive me, Will, but he's terrible at blocking. So you might want to get somebody else in there that can block. And it'd be nice to see, Dominic Mammarelli actually block some people and open some holes. But definitely get some targets to Arroyo because he's an athletic dude. Flex out Mallory more. If you're going to use him in a flexed out role as a slot receiver role. Get him in the backfield and not have him block. Get him in seams and flat routes and different things. Not so much inline stuff. He does a lot of H-back stuff, but not so much inline because he's just a waste there. Try and use his athleticism, but I think you need to target Arroyo a little bit more as he's a more well-rounded player, and I think he's better in traffic than Will Mallory, as we saw that seam route that Jake Garcia threw to him and he dropped it in the end zone, which probably was a fumble, but thank God they called it incomplete. But anyway, I think that's mainly what you need to do on offense right now. Defensively, I think it's going to be tough because Tyreek Stevenson, I think, is going to be out for the rest of the season. So now you're down a corner. Either way, I think Darryl Porter Jr. needs to start on the outside. I think he needs to start over DJ Ivey. I think we've seen enough of DJ Ivey for 4 years. Spot rotate him in when you need to. But we've seen his ceiling. That was Texas A&M. That was it. You got it one time, gone, never again. I think on the other side, I think you bump to Corey Couch outside because he's probably the best cover guy in terms of the corners. Yes, he's small. Yes, he's not a good tackler, but guess what? At least he can cover people. At least he'll be in position to try and make a play, as opposed to DJ Ivey, who's a terrible tackler and won't be in position to make a play anyway. I think at that point, then you look at maybe you got to get more snaps for Avonte Williams. I think James Williams is more of an in the box kind of guy. I think you should play James Williams at star. Let him cover the slots with his length. Have Avonte and Cam Kitchens over the top. And then you could also rotate in Gil Frierson. You could rotate in more corners in the slots as somebody's ringing my doorbell. Forgive me. Yes, not a big deal. I'll get it when I'm done here. So anyway, I think you can use some of the younger guys like Kamari Rogers, Jaden Harris, and then maybe Isaiah Dunson in the slot and rotate those guys in. But I think for the most part, I think you need to see Daryl Porter Jr. on the outside with Corey Couch. I think those should be your outside corners. I think your linebacker rotation needs to go down to 3 people. I think, Corey Flagg's been okay. He's been a lot better than he was last year. Right now, his overall defensive rating is a 71 grade. His run defensive grading is a 75.4. His tackle grade is a 71.8. He's not good in coverage, 60.2, but much better than other guys. So I think at this point, you want to mix in Wesley Basaint as much as possible and mix in Caleb Johnson. Those are the 2 guys that are the future. Not necessarily Caleb Johnson in the future, obviously, he's a transfer, and I think this is only his last year of eligibility, or may have one more year after this. But either way, those are your 2 most athletic linebackers, probably. And you want to see them on the field as much as possible. I would keep Keontre Smith on the bench right now. He's got a 49.5 defensive grade, 37.7 run defensive grade, a 51.1 tackle grade, and a 56.8 cover grade. Wow. So what does that mean? That means Keontre Smith is worse in pass coverage than Corey Flagg. Enjoy that one. I would also keep Wayman Steed off the field as much as possible. Use him sparingly. Right now, Wayman Steed has a 53.1 defensive grade, a 49 run defensive grade, 51.2 tackle, and 58.2 cover grade. So they both are worse in coverage than Corey Flagg. Yes. There's not many answers on defense. I think obviously one of the answers is to go more zone defensively. It's not play as much man to man. You're going to have to still play man on occasion. You can't be so predictable. I think if they have confidence in Porter and Corey Couch as man corners, they could do it. But I would also scale that back and mix in more coverages. I think you want to be more multiple anyway, and not just be a static man-to-man coverage team, because that's how you get beat. I think if you're static in anything, you're easier to scheme. Unless you got so many horses that it doesn't really matter. You're going to line up in an I formation and hammer that thing down your throat. Go 4-3, man-to-man, 1 high, 2 high shell, and say beat me because I got the better athletes, right? Billy's and Joe's over X's and O's. That's the old saying. But we don't have. So what I would say is, mix in some cover 4 because they're going to look to beat us over the top. Mix in cover 2. Try some cover 4 match. Some things that can cause some confusion on the offensive side in terms of reading coverages. Show them some different things that you've shown on film. Break tendency. I think you're solid up front in the defensive line. I don't think you need to blitz very much. I think if you roll in those defensive linemen, as you've been doing, rotating them in and out, you'll be fresh enough in the 4th quarter, and eventually you're going to get to the quarterback on plenty of occasions, just because you got so many bodies out there that are similar in length and have different skill sets that can really apply. They can really apply to the game and change it up on the offensive linemen. So they're always guessing. So that's my take on the defense. What other tweets lurk here? My man, Commander Mike Metcalf. After hearing about the possible mutiny in the locker room by the offense, do you think Mario making a switch to Garcia sends a message that he runs the show? Who are the leaders of the team down there by my man OT the Cane? And Brent says, ouch. Yes, this has been rough, Brent. Going to Commander Metcalf's point, and then also on to OTs, because I think they're kind of similar. Right now there's no leadership on this team, and it hasn't been for like 20 years. Nobody's really stepped up, and I think that's the big vacuum, other than talent, obviously, that's been left in the wake of the 2002 Miami Hurricanes, the last ones to play for a national championship. The leadership gap, the leadership void was never filled. As time has progressed, it's gotten worse. And there's nobody in that locker room right now that I think has taken over as that leader, as that voice within the players to be the one that everybody listens to and respects. And that's a problem. If you look to your quarterback right now, quarterback is a guy who's just very calm, very stoic, not really emotional. It's one of those deals that you need a little bit more from the locker room. It can't be just all coaches hammering the players all the time. It has to come internally from the players to have buy-in. As far as a possible mutiny concerning the offense, again, that goes back to the quarterback. The quarterback needs to be the one to set the stage for the offense. He needs to be the one that leads the offense and say, listen, I don't give a shit what we're running. We're scoring every drive, right? And I think that lack of leadership and that lack of belief in the offense has led to a little bit of a collapse here by TVD, some of the mental issues that he's having on the field. And, I think true leaders, and I think you saw the spark with Jake Garcia. And that's why Garcia came in and was being so effective, because he was ready to go. He was hyped. He was getting guys involved. He was a guy that the offense can turn to and find motivation from, and leadership and excitement and energy from. And that helps. Believe me, it helps. I think if TVD had come to the sideline after that second pick against Middle Tennessee and gathered the offense and said, listen, my bad. I got us in a hole. All right. This is on me, but I guarantee you, I'm going to snap out of this shit. So from now on, every series, every time we touch this ball, we're scoring. I don't give a shit what we got to do. We're scoring every time we touch the ball. You got it? It's on me. I got us in the hole, but I'm going to get us out. We got it? All right, let's go. And that'll be the end of it. But we haven't seen that from TVD. We do see that energy from Jake Garcia. And I'll leave the debate as to who should start for the end of the podcast. Let's see what else we got here. I think in terms of questions, this might be the last one. David Engelson. The shocking takeaway for me was the shallow mercenary mentality pettiness of South Florida players. Who are the Alabamas and Georgias recruiting from down here that we're not getting? They're getting the best of the best. Alabama and Georgia doesn't take everybody from South Florida. They take the best guys, and they also take guys that fit with them culturally in terms of their attitude, who they are, their makeup, their work ethic, things like that. Miami gets a lot of the leftovers. And yeah, there might be highly rated guys, but maybe they don't check all the boxes in the mental department. That's been an issue. So there you have it. What else to discuss? I think I want to go back to the offense because my man Furch asked questions about the offense being broken. We came into the season with a lot of expectations for Tyler Van Dyke and for the offense. And I think some of that was a little bit inflated. And I'm going to tell you why. The offense wasn't lighting the world on fire. Yes, TVD had a great run down the stretch and all that looked good. Let's put it into perspective. All right, let's be honest. We're Hurricanes fans, right? We're family. Let's be honest with each other. Let's go one-on-one. 3 of the games that TVD threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns were against 3 of the worst defenses in the ACC: Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and Duke. Okay, the only time they scored over 40 points, the Hurricanes scored over 40 points in the ACC, was against Duke. Duke gave up over 45 points their last 6 games of the season. That's how bad they are. Here's some notables. They gave up a shit ton of points to. They gave up 48 to a injured UVA team, Virginia. They gave up 48 to a shitty Virginia Tech offense. And they gave up 62 to a schizophrenic Louisville offense. Okay? So that 47 we hung on, not that impressive. They scored over 30 against UNC and North Carolina State, but just barely. And they were held under 30 points against Virginia and Florida State. Offense was not lighting the world on fire. You want to talk about scoring points? Give me 40 points a game. That's scoring points. And consistently. What we saw was the way we were scoring points was exciting because every time we scored points was like on big plays, bombs here and there. But everybody forgets that in between all that, there was a shit ton of 3 and outs. There were turnovers. There were struggles. There were times where this offense could not move the football, which is one of the reasons we lost to Florida State because they couldn't get a first down when they needed it. Right? They also almost lost to North Carolina State because they couldn't get a first down when they needed it. So let's be honest here. Yes, TVD played very well. They also feasted on shitty defenses. And they weren't ready for him like they are now. They didn't game plan around his weaknesses like they are now. So I'm not saying TVD is a bad quarterback. TVD is a damn good quarterback. He's got all the tools to be a first-round pick, but does he have it in the head? Is the issue. And that's what I was concerned about coming into the season. How would he react when defenses start throwing everything they've seen on tape that he, makes him feel uncomfortable? Yeah, the offense is ugly right now. It was ugly last year, just in a different way. They couldn't run the football. Do you remember not being able to run the football last year? Do you remember not being able to pick up a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1 ever? Do you remember rushing for like 120 yards a game, maybe less, depending on the game, and relying on nothing but the passing game? TVD throwing for over 300 yards, and we have 390 yards total offense, 400 yards total offense. It's not setting the world on fire, man. This offense was not the greatest show on turf last year. It was good, and it was real good against bad teams. Was not on fire. Let's scale it back a little bit. Let's reduce our expectations. what can we do moving forward in terms of schematics on the offense? Well, I think it was my man Kane that asked, or if not, I apologize, about the RPOs and 4 wide receiver sets. Yes, we need more RPOs in the system right now. No, we do not need more 4 wide receiver sets or 4 wide receiver sets at all. Because outside of Frank Ladson, Keyshawn Smith, Rashard Smith, the rest of that list in terms of receivers right now, not great. Okay. I would rather put Elijah Arroyo out there than put a 4th receiver. And that also helps in the run game. Now, formationally, yes, you can still go 2x2, 3x1, which they have with the tight end out there. And I think you rotate the receivers in, the other guys in at those other slots. Like you get a Romello Brinson every once in a while, get a Michael Redding every once in a while, Colby Young in the goal line. Situationally, you rotate them in. Whereas guys need breaks. But I don't think going straight 2x2, 1 back, spread, air raid, run and shoot is the answer. I think this team is better suited to utilize the talents they have. And I think their strength on offense right now is tight end and running back. And I think those are the weapons they need to exploit. So I wouldn't take Arroyo or Mallory off the field too much to insert a receiver that you're not going to get shit out of anyway. So I think the RPOs though are great because it helps the quarterback narrow his read, the number of reads he has to go through. You're reading 1 or 2 guys. It puts the defense in conflict. It allows you to get the ball out, be decisive with it, and it allows you basically to run 2 plays or even sometimes 3 plays in one. So the defense could always be wrong. You want to put the defense in conflict. And Josh Gattis has a lot of that in his bag. If you watch my video from last week, or listen to the pod from last week, you'll hear me talk about his RPO game, some of the stuff that he's run at Michigan. So yeah, man, I think they do run a lot of condensed and bunch sets, which I think maybe they need to expand from that. But I think they need to also not just be straight 3x1, 2x2. They have gone empty a bunch. They did it against Middle Tennessee last week. But I think they need to use some unbalanced sets, use some stuff that confuses the defense, create more gaps, maybe use some 3 tight end sets around the goal line because you got an athletic guy like Jaleel Skiller and Elijah Arroyo and Will Mallory. And you could use those guys in the passing game, along with Colby Young around the goal line. Defensively, I think, like we talked about, you got to zone it up more, got to make those changes. And, I think the safeties need to play better. I think James Williams was atrocious last game. He's a great guy, great player, but I don't think necessarily his long-term future is at safety. I think Avonte Williams and Cam Kitchens are probably the 2 best safeties. Avonte's got to get shit straight so he can get on the field and make plays. I think that'll help the secondary. I think the safeties have done a good job of run support and getting the occasional pick, but I think they've done a bad job in pursuit sometimes, and staying over the top of the deepest route has been an issue, in my opinion. So, who to start, man? What do we do? Jake Garcia, TVD. First, what's wrong with TVD? My opinion is I watched some stuff and I think TVD's mechanics are off. His arm angle is much tighter to his body than it's been in the past when he's throwing the football, and his elbow is much lower, which is causing him some accuracy issues. He's also not rotating his hip into the throws. He's doing a lot of back foot throws or a lot of stuff where he's not fully on platform, where he's not coming through that back hip and pushing off that back foot, which is also causing the ball to be inaccurate. I think some of that came from his offseason training where he was specifically working on off-platform throws, and that's how you generate some of the torque you need. Not twerk. I'm not going to twerk for you on camera. Not today, anyway. I'll start a Patreon if that's what you want. But never mind. Those off-platform throws have messed his mechanics up a little bit, and it's been hard to get back to who he was. Like I said in the Wide Right podcast, his mental state is off. His first interception against Middle Tennessee, he threw, it was a double out concept on both sides, and he threw it to the short side of the field to Will Mallory in between 2 defenders where the corner was obviously squatting on the route. Didn't even see it. He had a illegal formation where the formation was lined up right in front of his face. He checked everything, he thought it was good and went with it. It's his fault. And of course, the slide protection, where the slide protection slid away from where the under was coming with Rashard Smith near the goal line, and the ball was batted. You don't slide away from that. You need to slide to that defensive end so you make sure he's blocked and you can get the throw right over the top on that under route. So either that was him or Ja'Kai Clark who messed up the protection. I think if it were me, I'd start Jake Garcia, because I think you saw the difference when Jake Garcia got in the game and the energy that produced. Not only that, but he immediately started taking shots, right? He started pushing the ball down the field. Start doing things that Tyler Van Dyke hadn't been doing, and they were running the same offense. It's not like they were calling different plays. So I think there's a potential for a bigger upside with this offense with Jake Garcia, based on what I saw against Middle Tennessee. Now, if they stick with Tyler Van Dyke, will I be mad? No, because I think the kid has all the talent in the world. And if he could shake it loose and play it at the level we expect him to play at, then this team will skyrocket, or at least the offense will. But I don't know if that's possible anymore. He seems to be in a big mental rut. If he could fight out of that, then we'll be okay. And I think you start him, give him a few series, but keep him on a short leash, because if he starts getting to the same shit, we know Tyler Van Dyke has a tendency of snowballing. And if he doesn't start off well, he tends to snowball into worse, as we've seen. But I think you start him. And I think if you start Tyler Van Dyke, you need to immediately, first play of the game, go down the field, because that's what he feels comfortable doing. And you want to give the defense the threat of that happening. And even if you don't connect, maybe you pick up a pass interference, but at the very least, you're telling the defense, screw it, we're going to take shots today. And I think that whole first series, you take 2 to 3 shots, that first series, if you move the ball down the field. I think that first half, you take 4 to 5 shots down the field, at least in the first half, just to keep the defense honest. And try and get Tyler Van Dyke in a group and see if that helps. If not, it's Jake time, baby. What are we going to do? I think with Garcia in the game, you'll see more RPOs and maybe even do some stuff where he may keep. I wouldn't want that in case he gets hurt, but whatever. But I think for both guys, we should see more RPOs, right? And it's not necessarily run pass options where it's a zone read. Those are two different things. Zone read is where you are riding the running back and watching the defensive end or whoever it is you're reading. And if that defender pinches down, right, and attacks the ball carrier, quarterback pulls and runs it. An RPO is not necessarily that. An RPO is a run pass option where you're kind of doing the same thing. You're putting the ball in the running back's belly, but you're reading a defender down the field, which is usually the overhang guy, the guy just outside of the tackle, lined up probably about 5 to 7 yards off the line of scrimmage, or someone else, whoever you're reading the RPO concept, to see if he vacates that area. If he vacates that area and attacks the run, you pull the ball and you throw. Okay, that's RPO. So I think both guys need that. I think they need that RPO game based on the current run scheme. And hopefully that helps them churn out some more yardage. Some final thoughts, some final notes. I think one of the things that needs to improve from a coaching perspective is I think these coaches may have come in here and not built relationships the way they should have, or the way a normal staff that's transitioning in would do it, because they came in with so much name recognition and so much on their resume that maybe they came in and like, hey, you got to listen to me because look who I am. I'm Charlie Strong. I'm Jason Taylor. I'm Jamel Adai. I'm Josh Gattis. I'm Kevin Steele. And you got to listen to us because we know what we're talking about. You've seen it, right? But I think now's the time to hunker down and really build relationships with this team. And we'll see how much they actually believe in it. Because if you are struggling as a team and you are debating whether to do something or not, if you do not trust your coaches, you're not going to do it their way. And that's an issue. I think there's a trust issue between the staff and the players, and that somehow needs to be resolved quickly. And I think you do that through tape. And I think you show them, not just by tape, but also by showing them that you have their best interests at heart and really building that trust and relationship and showing them, listen, this is you doing your own shit and look what it's getting. If how I coached you, look what would have happened. Look at you doing it the way I teach you to do it and look how good you look. Look at you doing it your own way. Look how shitty you look. That's part of it, right? I think schematically on the offense, if they could pare it down and make it easier for the quarterbacks, I think through the RPOs, that's possible. And just have the guys play fast and loose and not robotic on both sides in terms of the scheme. I think the big thing about the Corey Flagg play where he attacked the tackle and let the quarterback run right by him, it was a stunt. That was his assignment, to hit the tackle to let the end loop around him and into the hole. But it was a robotic play because if he had his eyes up as he was heading towards the tackle, he would have just seen the quarterback right there and made the play. Sometimes you got to deviate, right? Sometimes you got to be instinctual. Sometimes you can't be a robot and just do what's been assigned. Sometimes it requires you to break off and be a football player. And I think they need to do that. I think this team overall is closer to the one you saw against Southern Miss than the one you saw against Middle Tennessee, and closer to Southern Miss than the one you saw against Texas A&M. So we'll see. We'll see if they prove that. And that's about it, man. That's the end of our bye-week blues. I've gone on long enough. I'm sure most of you have tuned out and you're bored, but I want to thank you anyway. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Leave me comments on the YouTube channel to help with the algorithm, so a lot more people can see these videos. I know. I want to torture even more people. Make sure you hit the like and rate the podcast wherever you're listening to it. And let me know, man, on Twitter if you guys want to hear that a separate fandom podcast. MCU, DC, comics, TV, movies, all that shit. Let's do it. I'm in. If you want it, I'm in. All right? Let me know. Well, happy Friday. Great weekend to you all. At least we get to relax this weekend and not be stressed. So I will be sipping my favorite beverage in front of the TV for 12 hours watching college football without a care in the world, my man. All right. See you guys next week. Go Canes.